Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. And it's a bit of a special episode, as this one's all about me. Oh, that doesn't sound very good, does it? Well, listen, it is all about me, because I'm excited to say that I have a brand new book that is coming out in the next couple of weeks. This has been a labor of love, and I'm really excited about it. So I thought I would indulge myself a little and do a bit of a deep dive into what this is all about, because this is a book that I've spent the better part of a year building and doing, and it's a subject that really affects every business out there, which is, what does it mean to have AI truly in your business? So I am going to dive into that this episode. Now, let me give you a little bit of context. First of all, the book is titled The AI Workforce: How to Redesign and Scale Your Business with Artificial Intelligence. And redesign is one of the most important words in that title, because most of us are familiar with a lot of different AI tools right now. That's the wrong kind of way of looking at AI from my perspective, if you are a business owner and operator. That's what this book is all about. So let's set the scene. Um, for me, if you're a business owner, if you're an operator, and you've developed a business that has scaled, that is probably has employees, has a certain amount of structure to it. For instance, smartphone, my company. We've developed a business that got to around 10 million of annual revenue with 60 employees. So it's a proper business. And as we scaled that company, don't forget, smartphone started with 3 people, my co-founders and I. Um, and we scaled now to 60 people. Now, that process of scaling, anybody who's scaled a business knows that starting a business is really easy, but scaling one is hard. And so you learn a lot and you build a lot as you scale. When you start out and you've got a really small team, then pretty much everything is organic, and pretty much everything can be kind of handled ad hoc as is, because there's a very few amount of you. So you kind of are just all in, all hands, doing lots of things. It's kind of like the tech startup way of looking at things, right? But that's true of almost any business. If you've only got 2 or 3 people, then you can kind of handle everything as you go. But as you start to build kind of a team, that changes. I remember very, very distinctly sort of getting to 8 to 10 people and it feeling different, and us having to adjust how we work, because suddenly, it wasn't just a couple of us. Now there was 10 of us, and we had to figure out how to get them some things, standardized. And then we got to 20 people, 25 people. That was like a leap up, and then 40 people, and then 60 people. And every time, and this is like a familiar story for anybody who's, done this, and that every time you scale up, there are kind of levels. And people sometimes equate them as revenue levels. Sometimes they equate them as staffing levels. But there are sort of levels that go where you take a leap in what you need to run the business effectively. And as you scale up, those levels include, like, defining your processes really well, having really clear management structures and accountability structures, having really clear job performance metrics and responsibilities outlined. These things, very rarely do you start out with them, but you grow them, and you sort of build as you go. Well, that is something that we went through ourselves. And then about a year and a half ago, in March of last year, so this is 2026, in March of 2025, I changed my role in the company. So I had been the CEO of Smartphone for the first 8 years of our existence, and had been sort of leading the charge with my 2 co-founders, Alex and Vlad, on building smartphone up and building the executive team. And I was, as CEO, running the executive team, which then ran the teams beneath them. And we were, reporting to the board and all that. And then I changed to get out of the day-to-day operational and administrative side of the business, and I changed to be chairman of the board only. And what that really did was give me the flexibility and freedom for two things. Number one, it let me give the flexibility and freedom to get out there talking to people again, which is where I'm best suited in many ways. And that's been phenomenal for us as a company, for me, to build relationships again, get out there, speak at events, speak on stage, network, build relationships with partners. Great. But it also gave me something I wasn't expecting. It gave me time. It gave me a lot of time, which I already had a good amount of time as CEO, but I had most of my thinking was very operational, if that makes sense. So I spend a lot of time as CEO thinking, but it was really operational, around the C-suite, around management structures, and sort of how to run the business. But when I changed to be chairman of the company, I kind of stopped thinking about that in many ways. That became, Vlad, who was one of my co-founders and took over for me as CEO, and Alex, who are, in the day-to-day running the business still. That became their side, and I started to broaden my thinking. And the first thing that really I started to focus on, and I'm kind of giving you backstory here because I think it's important. I started to focus on how we were going to integrate AI into our product suite first. Because this was just about the time when everybody was really starting to see that voice AI agents could be a thing, a real thing. And so, we talked about it, Alex, Vlad, and I, and the co-team, and we were like, yeah, let's get involved in this. And some of our partners, like I remember having good conversations with Stephanie Betters from Left Main, and so we started to look at that, and I got really interested in this. And the product side of smartphones has always been kind of my baby. I drew the first product map, when we first designed the company, and I was always very heavily involved, and this became something I was really got into. But I can't contribute from a technical point of view. That's not my skill set. But what I started to realize as we really started to think about agents and we started to develop the concepts of how we wanted to execute this, and I started to see the possibilities. I started to really, as our agents got better and better and better and started to get much better than anybody else's, I started to look and start to think a lot deeper than just how voice agents or text agents or whatever communication agents could work. And I started to think about what it would mean to really integrate those types of agents into your business. That's a different question than how do they work, or how do we how do we set an agent up to do something. The wider question I started to really think about was, how are they really going to work in a company? What does it mean? And where are we really going to get leverage? Because is the technology itself the thing? Not really. I didn't think that was right. And I remember going really deep on this. I remember as we started to really flesh out that we were going to focus on role-based agents, not technology, like trained roles. And that was a kind of something I was really passionate about. We built the recruitment center where people could hire trained agents. I then started to think, well, the next step is like, how do they actually really work in a business? And I went really deep on that because I started to think to myself, well, how do you leverage AI agents in your business as real employees, not just as fast capabilities or 24/7 capabilities? Like, what does it mean to have an agentic worker in your business, agentic AI? What does that really mean? And as I started to explore the possibilities of what these agents could do, and how much they could be trained to think and make decisions and more importantly, take action as we started to see a swell of tools like, Claude Cowork and all these tools that started to where people started to say, look, I can have this agent do these things. I can instruct Claude to do X. I can, they can go into my email inbox and write emails, and they can go and create invoices and pay bills and do all of they can do work. And that really stuck with me. It really stuck with me because I just kept thinking, this capability is phenomenal. Of course it is. But how am I going to plug that into a business in a way that's going to get maximum leverage? How am I going to really take advantage of that? That didn't seem as straightforward to me, because you can plug anything, a bit of technology, a bit of software, whatever, into a business. But to really get great leverage, you need to plug it into how the business works in a very true sense, whether it's a system, a CRM, whatever. And that usually means that the processes have to incorporate those. And so I started to realize that if you were really going to be in or able to take advantage of AI workers, was our business ready to have them, like to have AI workers really plugged into it? How do we plug them in so that they actually work within the business in a productive way? What do I need to think about in order to have that happen? That was a question I didn't feel at the time that anybody was really asking. And I had the time and space to think about this, and I really went deep into it. And I started to think and look at it. And I started to say, well, hold on a second. Let's think about this logically. If you're a real estate investor, have I got an event for you? REI Tech Unlocked, 19th to the 21st of September in Dallas, Texas. It is the event I always wish existed, but it didn't, so we had to create it. Now, I've partnered with my friends Stephanie Betters of Left Main REI and Steve Trang of Objection Proof AI, as well as Meta, Salesforce, and Twilio to bring this event to life. And we've invited some of the best real estate investment technology companies in the country. And this is not your normal real estate conference where you sit there and you watch people on stage. Nope. Here, you get to be one-on-one with the technology companies that are going to help you scale your real estate investment business. One-on-one. That means you can sit down, book an appointment with them, and discuss how their technology can help your business. You can set up accounts, start trials, get actually started using platforms at the event. We want you to come in, find out where the technology is going, and then actually leave with the technology implemented. It is the type of event I've always dreamed about. Now, for a very limited time, if you're listening to this, the event, I can get you 50% off tickets. That's valid until August 4th, 2026 at midnight. So click on the link and use the coupon code that's in the description to get 50% off your tickets. That is only valid until August 4th. After that, the discount goes away and prices are actually going up by $100. So please do take a look now, book your tickets, and get face to face with the technology companies that are going to help you scale. For a very long time, our businesses, any type of business, by the way, have been based on an assumption that I realized was no longer valid. Or I should say, I realized that for a very long time, all of our businesses are based on assumption that is no longer valid. I came to understand that as I started to look at it. And that assumption is that people are the ones who take responsibility and do work. Like, the people drive responsibility in companies, not machines. That's how it's always been. And that's true even like with automation and like think this is true going back hundreds of years. But even in the age of software, and I started to think about like CRMs and automation tools, and even then automation is an accelerator, but it doesn't make decisions. It may have a logic tree where it says, if this, then do this, but it doesn't analyze a situation, a new situation based on context and like a person does and make decisions. That's just not what CRMs do. That's not what automations tools have ever done. Um, the automation tools were there to accelerate and to automate, not to make decisions on execution. But that's not true with agentic workers. So all the assumptions we have with tools we've always had, automation tools and CRMs, that I realized that was no longer valid. That's not how agentic AI works, or should work, or can work. And in fact, if you're treating it like that, then you're missing the whole point. And so many people, by the way, do still treat agentic workers as though they were accelerants and automation tools, as opposed to decision-making employees and workers. And that led me into saying, well, okay, I know this capability exists now, and I know my business. So what do I have to do? What would I have to do to really make AI agents a powerful part of our company? What would I have to do? And I realized I had to redesign how we do everything. And so over the course of months, I started to experiment and I built a framework. And that framework is called the AI Labor Architecture Framework. Great name. But it's a name I chose specifically because that's really what it's about. And this framework is a way to understand how your business can be redesigned so that you can have AI workers and people working together in a truly efficient way, in a way to scale and accelerate your business. Not plugging AI and a random tool on a part and letting it work on its own, but actually weaving agentic workers into your business in the right ways to release the capacity of your people and your business to its truest performance levels. That's what that framework that I built was designed to do. And it took me months of thinking and experimenting to come up with that framework. And there are sort of, so the framework itself is, I'm not going to go through it all on this because it's too involved, and I wrote a book on it, which I'll get to. But the framework essentially has a couple parts, and I'll give you the high level of it. The first part of the framework is work architecture, understanding the work architecture. And this is a really critical thing because a lot of business, at the start I mentioned, as you grow, you start to introduce SOPs and structures. Those structures will have always been built off the former understanding of who does work and how work's done. So work architecture has to help us redesign that. And what I realized is that we have always artificially bundled work and execution and responsibility into a human role, right? So, work is the thing that needs to get done. The role, it was the person who did it, and the execution was the output. And we bundled them together and we called that a role and we hired people for those roles. But if we have capabilities of agentic workers, to really maximize what they do well and what humans do well, we have to unbundle that. And work architecture is the part of the framework that helps you analyze how your work does right now, how work actually proceeds in your business, how it's actually executed, and lets you separate from the human and understand what the work is, what the roles are, and what the execution is. So work architecture lets you see what's really going on in your business and separate it. Because the honest truth is, it's not about the people in your business, it's about the work. It's about what needs to get done, not who does it. But we've always assumed it was who does it that's what matters because we've always had to. So if we wanted to grow, we had to hire more people. But that's not true anymore. But if that's not true, we have to understand how that work is structured. And that's work architecture. The second part is bounded responsibility. And this is a really important part, particularly if you're bringing in AI agents, but also with people. Because from an AI point of view, you have to give AI boundaries. But that's also true with people. You know, we put assumed boundaries in all the time. An administrative assistant does not get to make a call on a purchasing order for a $5 million purchase. That that is out with their job description. That is above their pay grade, as we may say. So we always have these kind of boundaries, but a lot of times they're blurry. And they're blurry in our companies right now. And they're blurry because in a lot of times, the processes we've outlined, those things we break down in the first part, the work architecture, a lot of them right now, I'll bet you if you look at your business, a lot of those processes, you think you've drawn the process out. And then if you start to really look at them, you realize that there's a lot of fuzzy lines in those processes where, oh yeah, well, sometimes it does like this, or, oh well, yeah, but Jim knows if that happens, then we can't do that, right? Well, then that's not a process, right? Because that's what that is there's a process that is being propped up by people who are kind of making judgment calls based on experience and knowledge, but they're not following a process. So how does AI then follow your process? They can't. So bounded responsibility is a way, once you've separated work and understood the different elements, bounded responsibility is a way of creating roles, human or AI, in a way that gives the full context of how this role can act. What they need to know, the context, the boundaries, and how they escalate. And that is true for human or AI, but critical for AI. And that's the second part. And the third part is infrastructure. Because if the work can't move seamlessly from like an an agentic worker through to people or through to the next step, if there are blockers or if there are silos, then that work movement is going to be a bottleneck. What good is having an AI agent that can make 10,000 calls in a week if someone has to go find the outputs of those calls and bring them over here to action them and decide on the next steps and decide on the next steps? You're not actually creating leverage. You're creating chaos because over here we could do a ton, but these guys here have to make some decisions and now they're struggling to keep up. So that infrastructure layer of the framework really looks at how work moves around your company or how work can move around your company, and really understand the pathways between people and systems, systems and people, people and AI, AI and people, AI and systems, systems and AI. Really making sure that there is a seamless transition and movement of work so that if you can redesign your processes to create bounded roles that know what they need to do when and when they need to stop, and they're working inside an infrastructure that allows that movement and facilitates that movement, well, that creates the leverage that you need. And that lets you redesign how your business operates to have AI workers, agentic workers, human workers, and systems work in harmony. That's the leverage that I felt our business needed. And as I developed it and stress tested it, I had to explain it. And so I started to write about it. I was writing about it for our team, to be honest. I wasn't really planning on doing another book. That's my first book there. I wasn't planning on doing a book out of this. Um, but I realized I had something really interesting. And as I started to work with my, with the team and my co-founders Vlad and Alex, we started to really look at it. Everybody was going, "Wow, this is really, really good. This makes a lot. This is like a foundational thing." And as I started to write about it, and then I started to build in some context around it, I realized I had a book, and that's the book, The AI Workforce: How to Redesign and Scale Your Business with Artificial Intelligence. Now, if you are listening to this right now, there's going to be a link in the description, which you can use to register for a free copy of the book. I'll send it to you when it's published in a couple weeks. And I've actually built a system that it's at thefutureworkforce.ai, where the book is going to be launched from. I built a system that I used to accomplish all the goals of the framework. So I could map out all my people, I could map out all my processes as they work today, and then I could break them apart and redesign them for AI. And that's what the system is. And you're going to be able to take advantage of that system as well. It is a paid system. Eventually, it's in beta right now. But it is a phenomenal way of executing the framework. Now, why is this so important right now? I genuinely believe this is the most important thing most businesses will need to do right now for the next year or so, because the conversations we've had around AI has all been about the tools, the tricks, the systems, has been about, this prompt here. Here's how to use these 6 prompts to do X. Here's a tool you can do to do Y. All valid, all totally valid, but missing really the point of where the leverage really is for your business and how you are going to be able to transform your business into one that has AI as a central part alongside your people and your systems. We used to say, most businesses used to say, like, we've got our people, our products, and our systems. That's the business, or services if it's not products. Now, you really have to be saying we have our people, our products, our AI agentic workers, and our systems. And really, our team will just no longer be people. It'll be people and AI agents. If you've got a business of 50 people, this also doesn't mean that we're going to suddenly fire 50% of the people. A lot of times when I'm redesigning the processes, what I'm really doing is saying, oh my God, I've just freed up this team to be able to do 10 times the amount of volume. So I have now much higher growth opportunities and much higher expectations if I design this properly. And I think it's such a critical thing to do right now. This is the time where we are all, as business owners. If you are a business owner right now, you will have been thinking, Jesus, how do I deal with AI in my business? But I'll bet you're also thinking, gosh, is my business even going to exist? Like, is AI just going to take over? Is my business even going to be valid? Imagine a marketing agency. I talked to a marketing agency, and it's actually in the book, The Conversation. A marketing agency that has built itself up over 10 years, 15 years, has a solid list of clients. They deliver great brand strategies and ad strategies and marketing strategies. And now they're being put under pressure because everybody just thinks, well, I'll just go to Claude, or I'll just go to Grok, or I'll just go to whatever, to ChatGPT. I'll just go to whichever the vogue model is in the day, and they're going to do everything for me. They're in that situation. You'd be thinking to yourself, well, is my business even a valid business anymore? And I would argue, yeah, but you're going to have to change how you operate. We see all the time on social media people going, well, SaaS is dead. Software is dead because everybody can just vibe code this out. But we also see that that's not true, because people try and vibe code their own CRMs and then they go, oh, Jesus, this isn't working. Back to Salesforce, back to HubSpot, back to whatever. Now is the time where every business operator has to understand that we are going through a transformational moment, right? We are going through a true paradigm shift in how the fundamental landscape of how all of our business operate and how they're built off of. And that transformational shift is as drastic as the one we had when the internet first started. Think about that for a second. I'm old enough to remember the .com boom and bust, where people, in 2000, it was like massive .coms everywhere and everybody, and then they all went down. But the internet didn't go down. Name me a business right now that operates in a pre-internet environment. I can't think of a single one. The internet changed the rules of how businesses operate. And agentic AI, not just AI, but agentic AI has changed. The honest truth, has already changed the rules. And we're now catching up and realizing that. And now is the time to do it. So that's why I wrote the book. That's why I built the system. And right now, go click that link, register for a free copy of the book. I really think you're going to find that valuable. If you're a business owner, then this is a book I think you really need to read. It is something that, I spent over a year thinking very deeply on, trying to understand way more fundamental truths about how businesses operate than simply how do I plug a tool into my business, which is where the conversation's been going right now. So go over, click the link, register for that free book. I'll send it to you over when it's out finally. It's just in the typesetting stage right now with the publisher. And then invest the time in really thinking about how your business operates, and use the framework to break down your processes and your people and build it back up for an age where AI workers can work with your people hand in hand, and you can share responsibility and execution between people and AI.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealeestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.